Morning, Ron. How you doing? Uh, I think everybody here knows me, so I'm not going to introduce myself. But we're doing something a little different today here at Corner Church. My brother-in-law is here, and we're going to be talking about a subject that's not necessarily always talked about in the church. And if it is talked about in the church, it's not always talked about that well. And so we're going to be talking about mental illness today, specifically talking about the mental illness known as schizophrenia. And my brother-in-law is going to come and share. Andrew, if you want to come up here. We're going to kind of do something a little different. It's going to kind of be I'm going to ask Andrew a few questions, and he's going to answer some of those questions, and we're going to kind of dialogue back and forth, the two of us here. And so, again, something a little different, but I think it'll be good. Unfortunately, my sister was supposed to be here also sharing, but she came down with a very, very nasty flu. What was it, on Wednesday she got sick? Yeah.
Wednesday night.
And she was actually had to go into the hospital on Friday because she had such a bad flu, which is kind of a bummer. So we were actually kind of like, I think, talking on, I think it was Friday night, or maybe even Saturday, Friday night. Is this going to happen? Is this not going to happen? So really glad that you got to make it here, and really excited about this conversation. And just a little bit about Andrew. Andrew, I met, how long have you guys been, you and Steph, been together for now?
10 years we've known each other well. And
okay.
I think actually a little bit longer than that. So
yeah, because you guys knew each other in high school.
Yeah. Let's see here. We've been married for 9 years. So
yeah. Okay.
I think we've been together for 11.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's been a while.
So I've known you probably about 10 years too, and so which is kind of cool. I remember one of the first times I ever met Andrew. As a big brother, older brother, I was a little protective over my sister, and so when Andrew started coming around, I'm like, who is this guy? Kind of suspicious. Like, do I like him? Do I trust him? All that kind of stuff that goes with being an older brother. But I remember one of the first conversations Andrew and I had. We stayed up till about 4:30 in the morning, like just talking about all kinds of different things, God, faith. Rage Against Machines, all kinds of stuff, till like 4:30 in the morning, and I think I quickly realized like we have some kind of connection in there, and so it's great to have you part of my family, and I'm really happy to have you sharing here today. And so I was just gonna see if you would maybe share like 7 or 8 minutes, just briefly tell your story. I know that your story especially yours and Steph's story, it's pretty big and probably difficult to cover in like 7 to 8 minutes. But if you could kind of give us a little bit of a context of where you've come from and where you are right now.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about the amusement park, the last 15 years of my life has definitely been a roller coaster. Lots of up and downs. But it wasn't always that way. I had a very, very normal childhood. I had great parents, grew up in a middle-class house. Just was your typical kid. I had a great brother and just great family, big family. I just had a great childhood. Hockey was a huge part of my life. Sports, I was just a sports nut, just constantly playing a game of some kind, and very competitive. And to know me, you kind of have to know the hockey player in me. Like I said, I had that normal childhood. Everything was going great. And then the normal childhood kind of went away with hockey because I got really good. And I ended up moving away from home when I was 16 to play with the Team USA development program. Probably nobody knows maybe about that. Maybe anybody know about Team USA? Probably not. But in the hockey world, that was a very prestigious honor at the time. And shortly at that point, I think I was, well, I know I was rated, I was the best hockey player in North America for my age group. And immense amount of pressure came with that title. And I moved away from home when I was 16, and really within probably a few weeks of moving away from home, I began to have my first serious symptoms of schizophrenia. The pressure situation of playing a 80-game schedule and traveling around the world and just, basically having a job as a 16-year-old and being away from mom and dad, definitely broke me. It wasn't the very first time I had symptoms of schizophrenia. I do remember being 13 when I look back at my life. In 13, I basically kind of shut down as far as like schoolwork, and something flipped in me. And I remember also laying in my bed at night, hearing voices, hearing not my own voice, hearing like somebody was like this dark, very low voice. It's hard to describe, but it wasn't my thoughts. It was very scary. It startled me, and I have a clear memory of that as a 13-year-old. So yeah, I'm 16. I'm a mess. I'm turning into an alcoholic. I go from being the best hockey player in my age group as a 16-year-old to a very, very sketchy person. Is this guy going to make it in hockey? Is it not? Is he not? I ended up moving back home. I also suffered a lot of injuries. I'd torn both my rotator cuffs, and that kind of helped cover it up a little bit. So I get back home. I rested. I moved on with my life, but ended up playing hockey one more year after that, and then came back home when I was 18. Shortly thereafter, I met Steph, which is a great story. Maybe I'll elaborate that a little bit later. I met Steph, and we've been together kind of ever since, and became a part of the Scally clan, and it's been an awesome experience to be a part of to have so many relationships. We'll get back to this later, but so that's kind of my life story a little bit. Starts out normal, gets pretty crazy. Like I said, it's been a roller coaster ride, and here I am today. I feel so blessed and just absolutely so lucky to be alive. I should be dead. I've been very sick over the years and have almost died a number of times from this illness. And 30 years old now, I'm losing my hair and getting older, and I can honestly say I'm a lot more humble than I was as a 16-year-old. I have great parents and a great family, and I guess that's probably 7 or 8 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Just in your own experience, just because there's a lot of stigma around schizophrenia, can you just kind of, from your perspective, what is schizophrenia? What is this mental illness known as schizophrenia?
I think schizophrenia is a lot of things. Right now it's a big scary word. Just the word schizophrenia, people are like, oh, it's a weird word. I don't know why it has to be, but it is. It's also it's a biological illness. It is a chemical imbalance. Doctors all over the world agree on this. There's no real dispute amongst clinical psychologists and people in the field. And even most of leadership in church is across the board, whether it's Catholic or Protestant or Pentecostal or whatever, the leadership in these churches really believe that this is a chemical imbalance. It's a real condition. It's not a made-up thing or a false reality created by myself. Some people deny that it is an illness, and that's part of the reason that it's such a scary word, is that people don't know that much about it and they're afraid to talk about it. I think schizophrenia is also it's impacted by genetics, but it's also strongly impacted by environment, and I've seen environment and genetics play such a huge role in my experience with this illness and with friends that have it. I have several friends that have schizophrenia, and where you grew up, did you grow up in poverty? How life has treated you really impacts your experience with mental illness. I'm so fortunate to have support, have financial support, and grew up in a good environment, and still have good environment around me. So it's not just all a biological illness, but it can be treated. So it is definitely a medical condition as well. So.
Talk about some of the symptoms of schizophrenia. You kind of talked about the biological, that it is a biological chemical disorder. But talk about some of the symptoms that you've experienced, some of the hallucinations and delusions. Talk about some of that reality.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, when I was 13, I was hearing these voices speaking into my mind, and it was very scary. I've shared with people before. Yeah, I heard this voice, and people will say, "Yeah, well, I hear voices too. I have things going on in my head, and I have these bad thoughts." And it's something completely different, and it doesn't happen very often to me anymore. And it hasn't always happened a lot for me. But I could be going on with my normal day, and randomly I hear not my own thoughts or bad thoughts, thoughts of any kind. I will hear literally a voice of sometimes maybe a female voice even in my mind say something. Some of the symptoms of schizophrenia are really hard to describe. They're hard to put into words. I feel lucky if I can explain it to you. But I've been through so much with this. I've been at church before, and I've seen people's eyes disappear. I've seen their faces just go like black, like a black cloud even hanging above their face, which I in turn thought was them with the secret power to fight evil, and to somehow they had this trick of defeating the devil, and that I needed to learn from them how they were doing the special technique of avoiding being attacked. So they can be pretty complicated, pretty complex. I've often seen, I don't think I've ever seen people that weren't there, as John Nash, as some people might know from the movie Beautiful Mind. He was seeing people that weren't actually there. I haven't necessarily had that, I don't think. I don't want to pretend that I haven't, because I probably, who knows. But more importantly for me, I've heard voices. I've hallucinated spirits more often than anything else. Alien-looking figures that I've said, okay, that's got to be a demon. I did not think of it as an alien. It looked, and to me in my heart, it felt like a demon. Most oftentimes, these things would come at night for me, and there's been times where I thought that my heart was going to literally stop beating. It was beating so fast, I thought it was going to explode. It's not something you can just brush off and move on from. You see this spirit or you see this hallucination, it can just be just the worst thing in the world. So intimidating. Beyond all these hallucinations or hearing voices, a female voice, a dark voice of some other kind, I've lost communication with people. I haven't been able to talk to you or figure out what's going on. I've just been completely out of my mind, completely out of the ability to talk to you, to relate. I've thought that maybe you're attacking me. I've seen people make gestures with their hands, and I think that you're sending me a sign, and I've reacted to those signs in the past. Somebody will do that, and I think, like in baseball, the guys, send in the signs, and that's a tough one because we all move our hands, and we have these these gestures that we're always doing. So I remember before my second hospitalization, I was just so focused in on this, and that was very difficult for me. I've gone through anxiety, depression. I saw my case file out on the desk one time in a psych ward, and they had all these mental illnesses written down, and under my case file they had all of these mental illnesses checked off for me. So labels can be kind of not a very good representation of mental illness. I've experienced anxiety, depression, bipolar, grandiose schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, which is the worst that I've ever been through. But at the same time, I think I'd rather have schizophrenia than anxiety. Anxiety to me has been the absolute worst of anything. Those symptoms of anxiety that I had when I was first really sick, I was really anxious about everything, anxious to be confronted about the issue, anxious to be around my friends who all of a sudden, how do I treat this person anymore? I was so anxious about that. So my wife really wanted me to share a lot of these symptoms with you and to be more detailed with this and to share stories with this, just so you would understand how much I've been through and how much of a miracle it is that I'm sitting here right now talking with you guys and able to do this. I nearly killed myself several times. I had a relationship with some sort of being in outer space of some kind. I can't really put it into words, but it had convinced me to basically to kill myself, to live with this being in eternal bliss. When I think I was 18 or 19 years old, this is before I was put in the hospital for the first time. There's been other times, and I'm still today, to this day, I still have a relationship with a false being. I don't know. I met this person at the hospital in my second hospitalization, and the conversations that we had in the hospital were just, he was out of this world. So he might have been the one fake person in my life. I'm not sure. He looked real to me, but I still have to realize that this person might not be real, and I can see him in my mind's eye even right now, and he's still trying to communicate to me even to this point. And that gives you a really good idea of how permanent schizophrenia is, but how these symptoms, you can learn to deal with them and learn to move on and to, with Christ, to live a normal life. And I feel so blessed that I have gone through all this stuff. I'm still going through stuff to this very day. I'm still struggling. But 10 years ago, I couldn't have done this. I couldn't have got up this morning. And another part of the symptoms has definitely been my medications. I have to take medications that have nearly robbed me of my life. When I think of my medications, I just immediately get sad. It's just been so brutal to learn to live my life with these medications. I just wish sometimes that I could give people 25 milligrams of the stuff that I have to take, just to give you an understanding of what it's really like to take these medications for schizophrenia. I take antipsychotic medications, and they're not a cure. They're not this great answer that doctors came up with. It's literally just a scatter shot on the brain. I take them, and within about 20 minutes, they just soak my entire brain with this. Basically, it just wears you out. I mean, it just beats you up to the point where you can't pay attention to your delusions. And I've suffered probably more from the medications than I have from my symptoms. And that's something. If you know somebody that has mental illness and is really struggling to take their medications, or doesn't want to take them, or for whatever reason, it'd be really great if you could be understanding that learning to take your medications daily is really, that's my cross. That's I have to pay the price. I have to take these and suffer to have a chance to know God, to have a chance to get to know you guys. It's not a cure, but it gives me a chance. It gives me a chance to live a normal life. The medications have brought on so many complications. So should probably move on.
I'm gonna skip ahead on a couple of these questions, but you kind of talked about, the next question is talking about some of the things that have hindered you or have helped you in the healing process. And I think since I've met you about 10 years ago, I've kind of watched the up and down roller coaster ride, and kind of been there with you in some ways, and seen some of the stuff. And I can honestly say too, agreeing with you, that I feel like from where you started out when I first met you to where you are right now is amazing. It really is. But and I know that the medication really is a part of that. I think you would be the first to say that medication, is part of the healing process for you. And I know in my own experience with anxiety and all that kind of stuff, I've also had to come to terms with medication, that this is something that I need to do. But beyond the medication, what other things have really helped you, helped heal you in this process?
A couple of things jump to my mind right away. The first thing is God. Christ has eventually become my rock. It's been a process. Having schizophrenia challenged my ability to read the Bible accurately and accurately have faith. I have been just not able to handle the Bible and the power of the Bible and the power of God. But another thing that, besides Christ, that has been so huge in my life and with mental illness has been relationships. To have people in my life. When I get isolated, I really, really do start to sink. And I'm so fortunate to have relationships. And again, if I can share with you, if you know someone with mental illness, make it a goal to be a part of their life, to be a friend, to be a part of that, help with that part. Relationships have kept me honest, have challenged me, have just given me so much support, and so relationships and faith, and obviously the medications. Beyond that, patience and humility. Humility, just for me, humility has been the trump card for me, to be transparent, not to be defensive. That has taken, all of my 15 years of really having this illness, to be humble enough to be transparent, to tell you what's going on in my life, and to admit that I have all these problems. I've had to be submissive to people. I've had to be very submissive in the fact that I've had to accept Dave saying, Andrew, you're wrong. You're delusional right now. Or my wife saying, more often than not, my wife saying, I wish she was here, I really do. She speaks so well. But she really has been the governor of my thoughts, but I've had to submit to her. I've had to submit to her so many times, and being a hockey player and being so competitive to my core, that's really the person I was before I got sick. So I still have that person in me, and I'm still very competitive, and I've had to constantly lose my pride. So losing that pride and being humble enough to accept outside help on a daily basis has been huge for me.
Just kind of what would you say to give hope to somebody who might be struggling with schizophrenia or some other kind of mental disorder that's really that's really challenging in their lives, and how can we help individuals who might be struggling? I know one thing that you kind of mentioned, and this is a challenge because I think even in my own perspective, trying to talk with you, it's just like, even if I sense that there's something off, I don't want to be offensive, I don't want to be rude, I don't want to be all these different things, and so there's a challenge in that. How do we relate to somebody who is struggling with schizophrenia, and how do we, and what would you say to somebody who's struggling with schizophrenia?
Well, I would definitely say that with schizophrenia, it's not a death sentence. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. It doesn't have to be this horrible thing. There's hope, and that suffering is suffering. I've gone through some crazy things when people think that, oh, poor you, Andrew. Poor you. It's not like that. Suffering really is suffering, and for me, that's what I would like to tell other people with this illness is it's not this death sentence, and you can live a happy, full life, and I think I'm proof of that. I really, that's the hope. That's the hope that Christ really is this conqueror, and you can be this conqueror in your life, and I guess I don't think that was the full part of the question. Let's see here. What can the church do to help? What can we do to help? Do things like this. Talk about it. Don't be so afraid of the word. Don't be afraid to ask somebody, what's going on? Are you taking your meds? Don't be afraid to ask them about things. Don't be afraid to talk to them. 10 years ago or whatever it was, nobody would say anything to me when I first got sick. It was like, I just imagine if I would have had cancer, it would have been so different. People would have came up to me. People would have said, God, that's really, really too bad you have cancer. Gosh, there would have been compassion and caring. And instead, for the first many, many years of this illness, I dealt with so much shame because nobody wanted to even pay attention to it at all, and yet it's supposed to be this biological illness or this chemical imbalance, and it's treated as something completely different than that, which is unfortunate. So. Yeah, I think that answers.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
I think we're gonna wrap it up here, but just if if I could just speak into, just a little bit of my own perspective with some of the stuff that you've gone through, I can honestly say that if I've seen anything, obviously Steph, my sister, has been a huge asset to helping you along in this. Your parents, I think, family support, all that stuff that you said, but also just there is a stigma with mental illness, specifically schizophrenia. It does frighten people, and I think even when I first met you, I didn't really know much about schizophrenia. I don't really understand what this is or what it's all about. But I think for us, one of the biggest things is try to overcome that stigma and ask questions about it, and don't treat people like they have the plague if they have schizophrenia, or that they're so fragile that if you touch them, they're going to explode or something like that. There's a responsibility on our part as the church to help and to, like you said, part of the experience that you've had in the healing process has really been community and community gathering around and rallying around a person. And so,
one final thing. I'm trying to think of all the things my wife would have said. Because so often she says things so much straighter than I can. I have a lot going on. But, one of the things she did talk about too is learning when to push people with schizophrenia or mental illness, and when to be just there to be grace, present grace to them. And that's been a very difficult thing for us in our marriage and relationship, has been when she needs to push me to be a better person, and when she needs to just back off and just say, you know what, his brain is going crazy right now. This is not him. And I think she had said something along the lines of, you have your brain and you have your heart, and she's amazing at understanding when I need to be challenged and when I need to be loved and not to be pushed. So
I think that's about it. We got to wrap up, but I'll pray. Father, I just pray that as a church, as the church, as your representatives, that we would have a greater capacity on how to know and how to love and how to help those who have mental illness. It's not just schizophrenia, but anxiety, depression, bipolar. I know that there are a lot of people who struggle with these things, and we as a church, I feel like we have to get better at learning how to help people with this, not brush it off as some kind of spiritual attack, or just just get over it, or just take meds, or it's somebody else's problem. But Lord, help us as a church to learn how to discern and to love and to be a healing force for a world that has increasingly more and more mental illnesses in it. Lord, we thank you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.